Happy Reaction Friday, everybody. Welcome into the first edition of Morning Jocks in the year 2026. Welcome into the new year, everybody. Appreciate you joining us this morning because there's not really a more eventful way that we could start off the new year with what today's show is going to consist of. I'm sure many of you can guess what today's show is mainly going to consist of, but nonetheless, we are very thankful to be here in the new year and appreciate you coming along on the ride for us. So hopefully going to be another great year here on JOX as well as in the world of college football. And it's the new year, Damian, so it's a time for change and new phases of life for some. And I think right now, whether really regardless of what team you're a fan of, if you're listening to this show, you probably live in the state of Alabama. Or near the state of Alabama. So if you're an Alabama fan, an Auburn fan, a UAB fan, Sanford's got a new coach. There's things are going to be changing, right?
100%.
For a lot of them.
Absolutely.
And probably needed in a lot of areas. So that's how we'll start it off. We'll rip the Band-Aid off because we know what we got to talk about here. And there's nothing like waking up at the you-know-what of dawn to come into work, and you walk in, and the first thing that's staring you in the face is a scoreboard that says 38-3.
Yeah. It happened.
It happened. So, yeah, let's talk about it. It sucked. It is what it is. It sucked. It was awful. That was an embarrassing brand of football that Alabama played yesterday, and because of that, they have now found their season coming to an end. And I think a lot of people, myself included, I think you were in the same boat, Damian. It was I wasn't expecting Alabama to win that game. I thought they had a chance to win that game, but I wasn't expecting them to win. I knew Indiana going in was the better team. There's a reason that they're the number one team in the country. But in a loss, I thought it would have been a lot more honorable than the way that it did go down yesterday. So if you've somehow been living under a rock, Indiana did beat Alabama yesterday. Not a big surprise, but the surprise is the fact they beat them 38-3. And it is the worst loss that Alabama football has suffered since 1998, which, funny enough, it was against Arkansas. I wouldn't have guessed.
Wow.
Off the top of my head, if you would get, who was the last team that beat Alabama by more than 35, I would not have guessed Arkansas, but it was Arkansas in 1998.
Oh, boy.
So you got to go back a while. For the last time that it felt like this. And, I was talking with some of my buddies yesterday late in the game, and I'll be honest, at a certain point, like, it just kind of turned into a comedy for me where I was just laughing at the inability to tackle and just how brutal the Indiana run game was and how Alabama just, steamrolled over for 60 minutes yesterday, especially in the second half. It was just embarrassing. But, the last time I think Alabama suffered a loss like this, that you would go back to and be like, man, that was just a straight, it is what it is. It's just an ass kicking.
There's no other way to describe it.
You'd probably have to go back to Clemson in the national championship game. And at least in that game, right, you started that game hot, right? Tua was playing well. Like, you were up, I think, 14-13, right, at one point in that game. And it was competitive, and then the wheels fall off. This game, I guess it was competitive for the first little bit, but it really wasn't that competitive when all was said and done. And look, there's a lot of things from the game that you can point to and go, oh, this is why Alabama lost. That's why Alabama lost. And I don't think there's any one specific play, right? I think if you had to pick one, it would be the fumble by Ty Simpson there when you had the ball crossing the 50-yard line. You're down 10-0. You kind of had your first momentum offensively on the day. Felt like, man, all right, if you go down here, score a touchdown, maybe it's 10-7. Going into halftime, you could keep it there with a little hold on defense, and you would have felt really good because you got the ball to start the second half. But Ty Simpson, he goes down, he fumbles the ball. Indiana goes down and scores again to make it 17-0. And that really is when it felt like kind of the wind came out of the sails. And the second half, in a lot of ways, to me, kind of felt like it felt like the Florida State game a lot, where the guys you're watching the game and you can tell that they're defeated. Like, the players on the field were defeated in the second half. You could tell that, because some people, of course, were, it's okay. We're down 17-0 to Oklahoma. Being down 17-0 to Oklahoma is different than Indiana. Yeah. And they talked about that on the broadcast. But, the reality for Alabama, I think, is Alabama's a good football team. They're a flawed football team, like a lot of other teams. The problem for Alabama is they need to play other flawed football teams to where they can kind of create situations for themselves that cause issues. And, I mean, you go back to the Oklahoma game. Probably the reason Alabama wins that game is because their punter drops the ball. Like, I guess they put pressure on it, but that really wasn't a play that Alabama forced. It was more so a mistake that Oklahoma forced, and that led to Alabama getting the momentum and come back in that game. Indiana doesn't make those kind of mistakes, right? Like, you weren't going to get in a situation where they made that mistake, or Fernando Mendoza made, one of the worst reads of the year and throws it to a wide open Xavier Brown for pick six. Like, they just don't make those kinds of mistakes. And the problem for Alabama is they play mistake-riddled football, or they have this team this year has. And so when you go up against a team like Indiana that's very fundamentally sound, like, maybe this isn't a great comparison because it's to basketball, but it's almost like, it kind of just reminds me of like the Spurs under Popovich. Like, where you might look at them and go, okay, they're not the most talented team, but they are the most fundamentally sound, and they're not going to make mistakes.
They're not going to beat themselves.
No, you're going to have to beat them because you play essentially perfect football. And Alabama doesn't play perfect football, and that's why, I think things ultimately went the way that they did yesterday. So it was a tough pill to swallow. We got a lot of time to talk about what comes next and the future of all of this. I will just say this. And I know we're going to get it today. Please miss me with the Kalen DeBoer should have gone to Michigan.
Yes.
We're not doing that.
No.
And I know that a lot of you out there probably think that, and that you're entitled to your own opinion.
But let's be real.
That is a foolish opinion in my mind, and you're probably still a little reactionary and a little emotional, which is understandable. I get it. It was a tough game to watch and not something you're used to seeing for Alabama. But I look at it like this. After the Florida State game, if somebody had told you, hey, I know this was bad, but Alabama's going to find a way to make the playoff this year and win a playoff game. Now, they're going to lose to the number one team in the country. It is what it is. But they're going to find a way after the Florida State loss to make the playoff, play for an SEC championship, and win a playoff game. I think 10 out of 10 Alabama fans would have said, sign me up for that.
Oh, 100%.
And that's where I think the context of when you look at the totality of the season, yes, the way it ended is a disappointment. 2 of your last 3 games were losses, and they were blowout losses. You still made a lot of progress this year from where you were last year.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when you look at just how this game went, and I knew, and I had a feeling going into the ball game that Indiana was the better football team. Stack them up. It didn't really matter. There was nothing that really I gave Alabama an edge on. And how the game played out. And I was talking to my in-laws, and I was kind of describing, they're big Alabama fans. And I was telling them, I was like, if you find yourself down 17-0 against Indiana like you did Oklahoma, you're not going to win. Like, Indiana doesn't play that style of ball. You are going to need help. You're going to need Indiana to make mistakes. And they haven't done that. And that's kind of just been how they've been all season long. But what was interesting about this game was, outside, I think the only game I can really go back to and say this was the closest that I'd seen was Florida State, where it got to a point that Alabama couldn't. There was nothing they could do, and it felt like they gave up. It genuinely felt like Indiana beat Alabama into oblivion, and it's so unique because we had seen Alabama for so many years do this to other teams. Like, Alabama is a good football team. No, make no mistakes about it. Indiana is a great football team. And you saw the separating factors to our points that Indiana didn't make mistakes. They were extremely efficient. They didn't look rushed. They had an answer for just about every single thing that Alabama threw at them. And it got to a point where they were in panic mode. And once panic mode went out the window, they were just cooked. There was nothing you could really do. And Indiana, Curt Cignetti, he's a psychopath. That man, he didn't look like he was having fun.
Oh, my wife during the game multiple times goes, does he always look like he wants to kill somebody? And I said, yeah, and that's what I was like, he's got that Nick Saban in him.
Exactly. He's not satisfied until the job is done. And the way that Indiana truly, again, we had been discussing this for weeks that, okay, I don't think people are really watching Indiana. This is a damn good football team. And you got it on full display at the highest level in a college football playoff game where we had seen teams literally up. Indiana's the only team since the 12-team college football playoff has been assembled that has the first round bye and won their first playoff game. They're the only team to do it. Everybody else has, as we're going to discuss later on,
Yeah.
they lost. This team was well prepared. They were the number one team in the nation for a reason. Fernando Mendoza, whether you look at the glitz and the glamour of what a Heisman Trophy winner, quote unquote, supposed to look like, the dude's just efficient. He just finds ways to get blank done. Like, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Indiana was a great football team, is a great football team. Alabama, you kind of look at the season and how it went, you kind of overachieved because nobody, like, to your point,
I totally agree with that.
Nobody really expected after that Florida State game that we were going to sit here and have a discussion of Alabama playing in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Now, you ran across a bus, all that is Indiana, but the biggest things that happened, I mean, we had been discussing the entire month of November going into the SEC championship in December that Alabama cannot run the football. It wasn't going to get any better with this Indiana defense across from you. You weren't going to find a way in a couple of weeks to try to muster up something in the run game. And then the pass game, either Indiana's secondary is a lot better than I gave them credit for, or Ryan Grubb just did not want to attack them vertically. It just something to me was just off because when you're down 17-0, you come out of the halftime break and your first play is a screen pass that gets negative yards. It's okay, you really just don't think this Indiana team is faster than you, but they're whooping you at every single level. You got to at least give them the threat down the field, at least because Austin Mack got in there. I mean, he's playing with house money, so it didn't really matter.
No, but he let it rip and
played and did everything that you're supposed to do as a backup quarterback in that situation.
Well, and with Ty, because I mean, if nobody knows, because I know everyone went, Ty Simpson got benched. He got hurt. He broke his rib when he fumbled the football. That's why Austin Mack came in. And they didn't bench him because of performance. It's because he got hurt. But I guess my question that too was, I understand he wanted to give it a shot. If you can't go out there and play, it's like if that was going to be, then you needed to spend halftime coming up with what is our drive going to look like out of halftime with Austin Mack, a new look, and you catch them off guard because they're probably not planning on him coming out there. Maybe they have an idea, but I don't know. That felt like a miscalculation a little bit there. But I do think one thing that you hit on there, and I think this was, kind of what I was thinking about last night, is I think what the hardest part about this for a lot of Alabama fans is going to be that you just watched a coach that was mentored by Nick Saban beat you the way that you used to beat people. And I think that's the hardest part is we used to do that. Why does our team not do that now? Why are we not built that way anymore? And I think that's, hopefully that's a good thing for Kalen DeBoer and the staff in the offseason is you have to get more physical. You have to. You got to get better on the offensive line. You got to get better on the defensive line. You have to be able to run the football, but you have to be a more physical football team. And there's times where that's shown up, but the reality of it is, again, I think Kalen DeBoer's done a great job. I think that he can have a lot of success at Alabama, but when you're 2 years into this and the moniker now of your program is that they're kind of soft, and you got to fix that. You got to fix that real quick. And that's partially a culture thing as well, but you got to be physical. And I think we've seen by the 4 teams that are going to have a chance to play for a college football playoff, those are physical football teams. And Indiana was a much more physical team yesterday than Alabama, and that's why they move on, and that's why Alabama got their butt whooped, and they are finding themselves at home today. So we want to hear from you, 205-834-9450, your reaction to Alabama getting stomped on by Indiana in the Rose Bowl yesterday. We had 3 other games. Man, that Georgia-Ole Miss game last night was an all-timer, just a fantastic football game. The transfer portal's now been open for a little over 7 hours, so we got a jam-packed day. We know we're going to talk a lot about Alabama, but we got a lot of other things going on as well. So we'll get to your reaction, and we'll let you hear from Kalen DeBoer, his comments after the loss yesterday. That's all next here on Morning Jocks. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on a Reaction Friday. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Appreciate you joining us here this morning, as it's going to be a interesting day. I think it'll be a very entertaining day here on Jocks as we react to Alabama getting absolutely dog-walked by Indiana yesterday and the rest of the college football playoff, and then, of course, the transfer portal stuff coming up. But, hey, if we want a little bit of if you want some optimism, if you're an Alabama fan, you have won more playoff games in the last 3 years than Georgia has. It's just
Okay, that's a factual statement.
It's Random Fact Friday. That was just the first one that came to my mind, and so it's the one that I shared. But that's certainly not going to make a lot of people feel any better today. But, you know, I just, if we're doing that for people love to just bring up things like that about Alabama. So it's only fair that you do that for other programs as well. But we'll get to that game here in just a couple of minutes. But we do want to get to your reaction here. But first, let's let you hear from Kalen DeBoer quickly, some of his comments from after the game last night. So we'll start with this one. This is him talking about the loss and essentially just how at Alabama, losing doesn't sit well with them. And even with the way that the performance went, just kind of his thoughts on the loss and how the team responded to it in the locker room after the game.
Just got to give a tip of the hat to, Indiana and just everything that they did today in the game. And, I think for us, it's a lot of emotions right now shared in the locker room. We can be upset, because losing doesn't sit well with us. And, we can be, frustrated about it. But and that's what our program's going to be, is upset when these type of situations happen. And we've got to use it to fuel us moving forward.
So there you go. That is Kalen DeBoer. There's his kind of opening comments there after the loss. Now let's hear, this is kind of the next comment that he was going to go into, but he talked a little bit after the game about, again, it's hard to look at it now, but could last night's loss, could it ultimately be a positive, right? Is it a sign that things need to maybe change within the program? This was Kalen DeBoer talking about that performance yesterday, hoping to fuel Alabama moving forward into next season.
I know, because I've been doing this long enough and I have experiences that I can fall back on, that the fine line between what we had out there today and being at the very top is such a fine line, you got to go back to starting over from scratch with putting the people around you, the right people, committing to something, a common goal together, and the actions following it. And so it's such a fine line. It may not feel like it when you're in this moment right now and what happened today, but I can tell you it's a fine line between being here and being at the top. But we got to do the work. We got to put the work in. You got to believe. You got to be consistent. You got to have discipline, and we'll get back to work and start all over again.
Yeah, and I think especially in that second comment there, the part that a lot of people probably latch on to is, the part where he says, you got to go back and you got to start from scratch and find the right people to surround yourself with, from, I would assume that means from coaching staff to players, everybody involved in the program, but finding a group of people that are united in one goal and one front, and we'll see, again, some changes that are going to need to be made. Personally, this is just me. I think you need a new offensive line coach. I think you need a new special teams coordinator. I think you got to attack the trenches in the portal. You definitely need, I know Crowell coming in, that's exciting, but I think you need to find some more maybe established depth at running back. You need more than one of those guys. And then obviously the quarterback situation is going to be interesting, just to see what decisions are made in that room and ultimately what the future of that position holds. But, in some ways, right, there's reason for optimism because you do have the opportunity to change, but you also have to make the right changes. And we will see if Kalen DeBoer and his staff are able to do that. Some of the staff's going to be moving on, right? Nick Sheridan, he's going to Michigan State. Jamarcus Shepard's at Oregon State. Like, there's going to be, some opportunities for some guys. But I think a lot of us agree that at the end of the day, Alabama's got to find a way to be a more physical football team. And it's, I think it's fair to have some concerns and questions about the offense. When you have an offensive guru like Kalen DeBoer and he brings over his guy this year in Ryan Grubb, and it's supposed to, kind of fix a lot of those issues. And that's kind of what killed you at the end of the day, was your offense just wasn't good enough in a lot of situations. The defense played great most of the time. They kind of ran out of gas yesterday, but they got to fix that because you're an offensive guy, and it's I'm not going to make comparisons to other coaches, right? But I think it's fair to say that when you hire somebody that's an offensive coach and you're not scoring points consistently, that's not acceptable.
Yep.
That's got to be fixed.
And that was the biggest question mark, really, the entire season for Alabama. Is just what is your offensive identity going to be? Because we realized early on that, okay, this team is not going to be effective running the football. Now, they had moments where they were, but as far as just –
and the fact they made it as far as they did without a run game is what's impressive.
Exactly. So that's where the biggest question mark to me is, where does this offense go? No matter who the bodies are, it's what do you want this offense to be? What is it going to look like? How do you want it to look?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, receiver-wise, we saw what Ryan Williams was. Maybe we call this past season a sophomore slump. But if he is kind of your biggest weapon, one, we know what he has the capability to be. But you're going to need some help around him. You got to, to your point, you got to address the offensive line issue. Whether you have got to find 5 solid bodies that can actually maul people off the ball. They got to be grimy. There has to be a sense of presence of hey, when the game gets, 4-minute drill, we're getting to the 3 minutes, and when we have to close a game, we have to be able to lean in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
Not RPO. We're talking about straight runs. And Alabama wasn't able to do that. I think the running back room has a potential to be better because we've seen a lot of glimpses, but also how many mouths are going to be back there? How many mouths you have to feed as far as trying to establish something in the run game? But I think that offensively, Kalen DeBoer has got to find 11 quality players that everybody's working towards the same thing.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest question mark because, I mean, again, a lot of the issues weren't just – they were maximized because of the team that was across from them in Indiana. But there were issues that were lingering week after week after week of, okay, you had moments against LSU where it's like, okay, this run game is just not – it's not clicking where it needed to be. And then Oklahoma came, and it's this offense cannot run the football.
You just finally played a team that was going to 100% punish you for your ineptness.
You couldn't hide it. You couldn't hide it anymore. And then when Ty Simpson goes down, it happens. And again, questionable play calling. And
I wouldn't have gone for it on 4th and 1 from my own 35.
I wouldn't have called that play.
Well, and it was just the way that you run a play out there, they call a timeout, then you go and run a punt, like a fake punt kind of thing to try to mess them up, then you call a timeout, and then you go back out there and you run what looked like the first play that you had rolled out there. Also, I'm sorry, but when Jeremy moved in motion, everybody watching that game knew the ball was going down.
Oh, yeah, and Indiana set the edge, too. He wasn't going to get outside.
It just –
and then when he tried to cut it back in, I mean, the 88, he just got whipped across his face, and it was –
and that's not why you lost the game.
Right. It was a pivotal point in that ball game.
Correct.
Like, you get it, the drive continues. If you don't, you literally put Indiana in perfect field position, and they went out there and executed and scored on it.
And again, those are situations where earlier in the year, I will say it's kind of interesting. They kind of never went back to the Caden Proctor stuff after the beginning part of the year where, I mean, like, that was kind of my thing on that 4th and 1. Like, if you're going to do anything, give it to the 400-pound dude and let him move 3 feet. But
facts.
I digress. There's a lot of we could nitpick this left and right, but we do want to get to you, some of your calls and texts. Let's go to Steven. He's been waiting by patiently this morning. Steven, how you doing, man?
Well, where to begin? Well, let's see. Ole Miss won, so that's a positive.
Toddy.
Yep. So, I've been an Alabama fan my whole entire life, and I've never seen a team just give up and not care like this team did. I mean, I understand playing game, but you just didn't care. You just went out there and just didn't do anything, and the extension would be off the table. His seat was hot on the plane flying back from Pasadena. I would have left Womack and Grubb on the tarmac, and I would have just started over. I'd have made phone calls in the air trying to find somebody.
Well, who would you want if you don't want Kalen DeBoer there? Who would you want to be the head coach?
I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer has to go. I'm just saying, this defense that we run, and granted, we had Jeremy Pruitt for a long time. It'd be wonderful to have Pruitt back, but I want cornerbacks 2 inches from a receiver and not 8 yards and give them 30 miles when they catch a ball.
Yeah.
You know, knock people off routes. Do your job. This zone crap ain't working. And, you know, like you said, when Jeremy goes in motion, the ball is probably going to him. Or if this is, you know, you could have given Caden Proctor the ball 500 times and he wouldn't have fallen 3 feet for a first down. It wouldn't have mattered. Like I know this is sacrilegious. I told my wife, if Jesus was quarterback for us last night, we'd have lost that ball game. I mean, there was no way Alabama was going to win that ball game, no matter what it was. And that's terrible to say. I mean, yes, you're going to lose ball games. And yes, Alabama fans have gotten spoiled because we had Saban for so long. But there are competent assistants that you can find to bring in who can make changes on the fly and, you know, make things happen. I mean, Pete Golding looked like he was coming off a 5-day bender from Vegas every single time on the sideline. And now Womack looks like he's got a heart monitor the way he wears that stupid thing around him. And it's just, I mean, it's irritating. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
And, you know, life will go on. But like I told my wife last night, by noon, probably a third of these players will be in the portal.
That's a very real possibility. Thank you, Stephen. We appreciate you calling in this morning. And yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be entering the portal today from Alabama and, you know, whoever's left at Auburn that hasn't already entered the portal. I'm kidding. That was mean. But yeah, I mean, I understand a lot of people are going to be frustrated. You know, we talked about kind of the offense and the concerns with that. I would just say, was it a great day for the defense yesterday? No, it wasn't. But when you're going up against that offense and your offense is giving you an absolute squat,
nothing.
At a certain point, you're going to break. Like, it just is what it is. And the reality of it is, I mean, you still had a top. Look, I get it. It didn't look the way that it used to, and it didn't look like Indiana's defense. You still had a top 15 defense in college football this year. Like, they're very solid defense. But I do think some of the offensive concerns are warranted. It is fair. So I'm sure a lot of you have those concerns. But we'll keep hearing from you, Melvin. Hang on. We see you there waiting on the phone lines. We'll get to more of your reaction. We also have 3 other games we got to talk about. I know Damien's chomping at the bit to talk about his Ole Miss Rebels. So we'll get more of your reaction, talk about the other games from the weekend. That and more is next here on JOX. Well, welcome back into Reaction Friday here on Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell here with you to kick off the new year. And based on the text that I'm reading right now, it's going to be a rough day for a lot of you. But the good news is it's a Friday, so you have the weekend to kind of collect yourself and, next Monday get back at it. So it was a rough one yesterday, but we are here to rip the Band-Aid off and talk through it with you as Alabama. Their season has come to a close after losing 38-3 to Indiana. They finished the season 11-4, and Kalen DeBoer now 20-8 overall in his 2 seasons in Tuscaloosa. And we will see where things go from here. But certainly some changes needed to be made if they want to take that next step. And we played the audio for you, right? Kalen DeBoer talking about it's a fine line between where we are and where Indiana is, and we talk about that a lot of the time, right? There's a lot of teams every year that can make a college football playoff. There's not a lot of teams that can win a national championship. Alabama was part of the former group, but not part of the latter group. And clearly the 4 teams that are standing right now are the teams that can win a national championship. And we will see who ultimately does win it at the end of the day. We'll get to those games here in a second. But we do want to pay off Melvin, who's been waiting by patiently this morning. Melvin, how you doing, man? What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, guys. How y'all doing today?
Doing well, Melvin. Doing well.
That's me to you. But so I'm watching the game. But first of all, let's go back to after the Oklahoma game. All you've been hearing is how physical Indiana was and how they were going to beat Alabama by being the more physical team. And everybody saying that Alabama would not be the most physical team on the field. And I thought, okay, I thought Alabama was a physical team, but I guess not. So you go back to that, they were very physical. I'm watching the game, and I'm not one to say that this is why they lost the game, but this is what I say. I saw a lot of holding, but so if they're allowing that, then I'm saying to myself, why isn't Alabama doing the holding? But I still can't figure out why Alabama cannot run the ball for the last 2 years. This is not just this year. This has been since they've been there. So why is that offensive line coach still there? Because Alabama's linemen are just as big and just as strong as anybody else. So why is it that you can't run the ball? I don't think Alabama had a running back other than the freshman that you redshirted had that long run against the second team that they played in the year. Was it Lau Monroe? I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like an 80-yard run for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
And I don't think they had one guy this year that had more than 50 yards of rushing this year. And to me, why is it that you cannot run the ball? And this is an all-year thing. So if the boy is coming back, and I'm not one that advocates that he does not, if that offensive line coach comes back, then that's an issue, and it's going to be an issue. So, but I when you guys said at the beginning of the show, I thought to myself yesterday, am I seeing Alabama give up? I've never seen an Alabama team give up. I thought they gave up in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was amazing to watch that team do that. But that's attitude, and that starts with the head coach. A Saban team, I'm not going to compare them to Saban. I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying. And they even go back before Saban. I don't remember an Alabama team giving up like that. And to lose Alabama losses under DeBoer, they're usually pretty devastating losses. Not other than the first Oklahoma loss. Usually when they lose, they lose pretty good. But I was very concerned. I'm concerned going in next year. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be able to win the ball? And I saw Xavier Cole play up close and personal in the championship game. I saw A.K. Deere play this year. And not just that run, but a couple of times he's in the game. I'm starting next year. It's just me. I see Xavier Crowell and A.K. Deere as my 2 starting running backs and throwing in Daniel Hill because I believe you're going to lose Ricky Young.
Oh, yeah.
I believe. And I believe you may end up losing Kevin Riley. But I'm starting the year with those 2 guys as my starting running backs, 1A and 1B, and throwing in Daniel Hill in there as well. You got to find another receiver. And I just don't know what happened to Ty Simpson after game 7. Game 2 through 7, man, he couldn't miss a receiver. It wasn't that he was holding the ball, but it came after it started with the South Carolina game. I saw a guy that for some reason didn't seem to be able to find an open receiver. And I'm seeing other teams throwing open receivers. I'm like, why is Alabama receivers always covered? And when he's throwing the guys, most of the time somebody's right there. So I'm just concerned about that, and I hope that next year, it's got to be some big changes. You're gonna lose. What happened to LT Overton? Didn't hear his name. I'm not saying he didn't play well, but I didn't hear his name.
Well, he was coming back from injury and stuff. Sorry, man, we gotta run. But no, I understand a lot of the frustration. The run game absolutely has to be better. And I think that was a lot of your problems this year. And I think going back to Ty, well, first I'll tell you this: like Ty's been hurt a lot of the year. Like that's just the reality of it. He has not been 100% in a long time, and I think that affected him. And I think also, the reality of it is, he got hit a lot, and I guess you could see certain players out there and go, well, why can't he be like that quarterback? But when you get hit as often as he does, you don't have the trust in your protection to where you can read the field the right way and get through your progressions. And that's where you start to see, well, this guy was wide open. Well, Ty's probably already running for his life because he, that internal clock for him is time's up. All right, it got to go. And I think that was a lot of it was you had a quarterback who, again, remember, this was his first season as a starter. He played the second half of the season pretty banged up. He had an average at best most of the time offensive line, and he had no running game.
Everything was on him.
And on top of that, Cuevas was hurt for a good chunk of that. You got Jeremy, but Ryan Williams is a shell of his former self. Isaiah Horton shows up sometimes. Like, that's it. Like, a lot of the offense this year was Ty, Parker Brailsford, and Jeremy.
Yep.
And Cuevas when he was healthy. Like, that
was it.
Those were the guys you could rely on every down. That was it. There's 11 guys, not 3.
And that's, again, when all the pressure and all the weight of this offense is dependent on the quarterback. He already had to carry a lot, but again, when the supporting cast isn't necessarily playing up to a consistent level, you're working what you got. And when his feet got hot, like you said, it was panic mode.
Yeah.
It was, oh my gosh, I have a little bit more time than I thought. What am I supposed to do with my hands? What am I supposed to do with the ball? So you just never found the consistency other than the month of October. Like, the month of October for Alabama was just spectacular. And then it just flipped. And I don't know, man. I understand the frustration, but a lot of credit has to go to Indiana for just – Indiana's a damn good football team. And we tried to tell you.
We did.
We tried to tell you. Now, I don't think any of us expected 38-3. But it felt that, hey, if Alabama does not play pretty much perfect, it won't be that close of a ball game. Just not to this level.
Yes, I agree with that. And I will say, okay, one sentiment that I do not agree with this, because there's been a couple people that have sent this in, and I don't mean this against anybody personally that texts this in, but it's, we should have been in the playoff in the first place. Yes, you should have. Like, Alabama's a good football team. Again, like me and Damon were talking about this in the break. Okay, yes, you lost and you got embarrassed. You're still one of the 8 best teams in the country. Like, I get that the way that, again, I understand the way that it looked was really, really bad. You absolutely deserve to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
Like, you got in the playoff and won a playoff game against another. You didn't beat Tulane or JMU in the first round. Like,
right.
You got in and you beat a team that was also a playoff team from the SEC. And I get a lot of people say, well, Oklahoma shouldn't have been in. Boo freaking who, Notre Dame? I'm sorry. Like, I really don't care. Again, I understand emotions are high. People are freaked out after yesterday. Alabama absolutely deserved to get in. They are a good football team, but they are not an elite football team. And they ran up against probably the elite of the elite yesterday, and they got smacked. And that's the reality of it. So we'll get to more of your text. We do eventually have to get to these games. We're going to talk about them. I know I need to let Damian have his victory lap for his Ole Miss Rebels. So we'll continue on as we wrap up the Reaction Friday edition of Morning Jocks right here. Final few moments here on a Reaction Friday morning JOX. Conrad and Damien here with you. Going to hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning here at 7 o'clock. Should be an entertaining day here on JOX. Of course, we'll be with you until 2 o'clock when Three-Man Front wraps up, and then Paul Feinbaum from 2 to 6, and that'll get you into the weekend. So we'll talk about these games here quickly. I did want to mention this because the portal did open last night. A quick update. I'm sure we'll have a lot of these throughout the day, but for Auburn quickly, over the weekend, we did find out Eric Singleton Jr., he's going to the NFL. So now your top two receiver, well, really your top three, because Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons are in the portal.
The whole room is decimated.
Pretty much. So they're going to have to start over from scratch at wide receiver, it looks like. At tight end, Preston Howard enters the portal. I think a lot of Auburn fans are very happy about that one.
Yeah.
Mr. Butterfingers.
Yeah.
And you did get some good news, though, about some guys that are coming back. A lot of them on the defensive side of the ball, but some of the bigger names, DeMarcus Riddick, Elijah Melendez, Malik Autry, and a couple other guys have all announced that they are planning to come back for Auburn next year. So that's kind of your portal update there. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date on everything going on today because it's going to be a crazy day for the transfer portal. But we do want to get to these other college football playoff games quickly. You did have Miami on Friday. They upset Ohio State 24-14. Keontae Scott, the former Auburn Tiger there with the big pick six early in that game. But yeah, kind of a shocking result. I know a lot of people picked Miami to win that game, kind of later in the week. But again, it wasn't the fact that Miami won. It was the fact that they pretty much dominated Ohio State, and they were kind of able to make it interesting. But Miami able to go and lay the dagger late in that game. So impressive win there. And Carson Beck in Miami will play Ole Miss for a shot at a national championship. Oregon and Texas Tech yesterday morning. That game was almost as bad as Indiana-Alabama. Oregon wins 23-0. Just an embarrassing performance by Texas Tech. No offense whatsoever.
No.
They got smoked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a bad performance by them. And then you had Indiana-Alabama. So, let's be honest. The first three games were not great. So, it's a good thing that the Ole Miss-Georgia game last night was one of the best games I've seen all season long. Ole Miss, they get the 39-34 victory. I will just say this. Trinidad Chambliss, late in that game, he had like 3 straight plays that are straight backyard football. Like you're drawing up a play on your palm and your buddies are just going out there running and hope and a prayer, and it worked every time. So, Damien, I know you're a adopted Ole Miss Rebels fan this year, and you've got to be very excited that Hottie Toddy is rolling into the semifinals.
Absolutely. But to your point, though, it was one of the best football games we had seen all season.
Oh, it was awesome.
It was absolutely phenomenal. And I truly felt that Ole Miss, they let Georgia, they let them get away with it the first time they played.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss showed that they have been the better team this entire time.
It came to the fourth quarter, though, and Georgia
and
put it on them.
Yeah. And Gunnar Stockton, he already had my respect, but he garnered even more for his performance last night. That dude is tough as all get out. He takes
the one play
shots.
where he threw like a jump pass and got yeah.
Like, man, and he bounced right back up, scores on the quarterback sneak the next play, then holds it for the extra point. I was like, bro, this dude is built different. You don't make football players like that anymore. Not in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
But Ole Miss, man, when they needed to make plays, they just did. And Kirby Smart is probably going to kick himself on that failed fourth down attempt. Also, I don't know what the tackle was looking at when the guy is standing directly right outside your outside shoulder. And if you look to your left, you pick him up. You got to let that go. You got to tell your guard, like, hey, you got this. Like, I know I couldn't tell if he was in between them or was he head up with the guard, but you've got to communicate that we're going to pass this off. You got that man on man, and I got this. I got the edge because he came out hot, and Gunnar Stockton had no earthly idea where he was coming from. But Ole Miss offensively, man, they were able to go up and down the field. I don't care that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be going to LSU. I appreciate his time.
Absolutely.
I appreciate him 100% giving his all to Ole Miss for this run. And Ole Miss, man, Trinidad Chambliss, him and Kejuan Lacey, all those receivers, this is why I was trending towards Ole Miss all season long. And this is why I made it so easy for me to pick Ole Miss, because I had a feeling like this could be a magical run. Whether Lane Kiffin was on the sideline or not at the end, but the way that they've gone about it, it's one, defensively, Pete Golden has, no matter how you slice it up, he's improved this defense as a total unit. And this what's been the Achilles heel for Ole Miss for so long is they couldn't stop anybody.
Mhm.
Now they're not just stopping people; they're beating people up. Like, they're physical on the defensive side. But a lot of credit to Georgia, and I mean, for a month layoff and to still go out there and play the way they did. A lot of kudos to them. But Ole Miss, man, when they needed to make plays, Trinidad Chambliss, boy, he is a dog. A D2 national champion, transfer, wasn't even expected to be a starter, goes out here and sets his career high in a college football playoff quarterfinal matchup. And we got a chance, man. We're one of 4 teams left, baby. Hotty toddy.
I'm glad you're having a good day, Dave.
I am.
I know. And as you should be. As you should be. It was a very impressive performance yesterday by Ole Miss, and it's just, again, it's crazy because this is the team we thought they had last year, right? Last year's team they were supposed to be doing this,
right.
And now, all the storylines and everything make it incredible. Couldn't be happier for Pete Golding. Just incredible, truly an incredible performance.
Y'all
yesterday.
didn't want Pete. Now look at him.
Yeah.
Look at him now.
It's working out well for y'all. Well, we appreciate you joining us. That's our Reaction Friday. We're back on Monday. Mac and Cube is next.